According to the FDA website, more than 95% of the animal used for their meat and dairy fed genetically modified crops. These crops are corn, soy, canola, and cottonseed. These consider the raw material of many of our industry, such as canned food, frozen food, cereal, sodas, and many others. The important thing is that many of the European countries have placed a ban on the cultivation and the sale of genetically modified organisms. But yet, the US government, the inventor of these organisms, have no strict regulation at all. So my resolution is that the US government should ban genetically modified food. I mean by US government specifically the USDA and the FDA, since these two agencies are the one responsible for the inspection of our food. Genetic modification is the use of modern biotechnology technique to insert a gene of an organism into another organism. This organism could be a plant or animal. For example, let's say we have a desired trait like pesticide resistance. We take that gene and we insert it into the DNA of a plant, and the end product will be a plant that is resistant to pesticides. Banning GMO is literally mean stop producing and selling genetic modified food. In order to do that, let's talk first about the major concern among GMO. Two biotechnology researchers, Ardikani and Megati, have published an article in the NCBI website called Genetically Modified Food and Social Concern. They stated that many of the animals who've been fed genetic modified food have been harmed or died. For example, rats who've been exposed to transgenic potato, they have abnormal sperm. Other animals like cows and goats who fed genetic modified maize, they show some complication like early delivery, abortion, and many of them have died. If that's the case with animals, so how about human? One of the major goals of GMO is to produce a crop that is resistant to pesticide. And maybe some of us have heard about Roundup pesticide. Roundup pesticide have a main ingredient called glyphosate. Glyphosate is very strong and cheap pesticide, but it's known to cause cancer. So no matter how much you wash your food, this ingredient will end up in your system. And then another major concern that scientists are concerned about is something called the gene flow. The gene flow is by when we have one gene in a plant, somehow this gene, like pesticide resistance, this gene will transfer from one plant to another, and the other plant happen to be a wild plant like wheat. So now that we have a wheat with a pesticide resistant characteristic that we cannot kill. This gene flow doesn't only happen from plant to plant, but also can happen in our system. In 2015, an article called Genetically Modified Food and Probable Risk on Human Health by Glucin Algen Askok. She said that gut microflora and pathogen in our system can take these genetic material from food that we eat. This genetic material could be the antibiotic resistant. Now that we have a pathogen that is resistant to the antibiotic we take, that will cause to the so now we develop a antibiotic resistant disease. There is many concern about GMO. These just are a few, and now that we have listed some of them, let's talk about the plan that we have to ban these crop. There's an article called Urea What You Sow, the case for banning GMO in the United States, published by Elizabeth Bach. She talked about some steps to ban GMO. First, having the USDA mandate the labeling of genetic modified food. I don't recall when I go to the supermarket see any section literally say genetic modified food. I see organic food, so you have the right to know what you eat. Second, using subsidies. By having the government paying the farmer to switch to growing naturally, that will provide the farmer with a stable income and will reduce the prices of organic food for consumers. And the last step is banning GMO. If we follow these three steps, we will banning GMO will be not that complicated. So now that we have banned GMO, so how is the world better off without these crops? Rob Troff in 2018 have published an article called Benefit of Natural Food, including non-GMO nutrition board. He stated that having a non-GMO crops will reduce the antibiotic resistance, so we don't have that gene transferring from one organism to another, and reduce the potential toxicity because we will reduce the use of these harmful pesticide. So these toxin will not gonna end up in our system. Third, it's gonna be better for the environment. Growing GM food will deplete the soil from the nutrient, and in order to put more nutrient in the soil, we will use more energy and fuel, and that will affect the global warming. And also, we will have fresher food. The main goal of GMO is to have a long shelf life. So the food that you eat is not as fresh as you think. So in conclusion, it's very important to test and examine the long-term effect of GMO. And if the US government have followed these planned steps that we provided, we will protect our health, our environment, and our future generation. Thank you.